Welcome back. We as a nation face territorial threats because of the kind of postures that have been taken by nations like China and Pakistan. But that's not the only threat that looms over us as a country. There's a bigger menace that threatens India, and it comes from the digital world in the cyberspace. Online threat actors have been ramping up their attacks against India ever since the pandemic broke out. State-sponsored cyber attack groups and hackers from Pakistan, China and North Korea are keen to breach India's firewalls. And not just India, these groups are using cyber warfare mechanism and also attacking nations like the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan and Singapore. A Singapore-based cybersecurity firm has released data with a warning that India is becoming a hotbed of cyber attacks by its geopolitical foes. Threat actors are especially eyeing India and the government's funded COVID-19 support initiatives. Joining us live here on The Nation at 5 is Beenu Arora, CEO of Cyble Cybersecurity. She's joining us from Melbourne in Australia. Beenu, thank you very much. I know it's a little late in the... Beenu, thank you very much. It's a little late in the evening there in Australia, in your part of the world. But this is something which Australia has faced, and the Australian government more or less hinted as to where these attacks were coming from. There is also, this is something that India has been growingly aware of, and at various levels. Why is this happening, and how is it that nations like India can secure themselves?
Well, thanks for having me today. Majority of the nations around the world which are increasingly moving towards digitization, especially when it comes to the financial sector and banking services, all these increased digitization is attracting cyber criminals at the same time to target the nations, as well as use the cyber mechanism to target the government as well in order to steal the data. Now, India is at the heart of Asia. That's the most interesting part. A lot of regions, especially the neighbors around them, what we are seeing at the Cyble at the same time is the neighbors are actively trying to penetrate into the government systems as well as in the private sector. The threats are quite serious in the sense of the motivation range from financial gains all the way up to the state-sponsored activities. And what we have observed at Cyble is the sophistication of these cyber attacks are increasing, and the attackers at the same time are becoming more persistent in order to achieve their objectives.
But are there any specific targets? What is the intent, and what is the percentage of state-sponsored attacks, and where are they targeted? And how can India safeguard itself?
Excellent question. So in terms of the number of state-sponsored attacks which we are observing are still a very small portion if you look at in the grand scheme, which in my humble opinion is less than 5%. But the point is what they are targeting, I think that's really important. So in terms of the target of these cyber criminals range from all the way up to the government officials, including the Indian military, for an example, all the way up to the diplomats as well as the different state authorities. The intent behind these sophisticated cybercrime, especially in the context of state-sponsored attacks, are to gain information really, which can then help them in various geopolitical purposes. We have seen attacks in the past where they are trying to collect intelligence in relation to, for an example, military exercises, and they use the same information in the context of cyber warfare in order to better equip themselves against the target of the victims.
Well, in the case of industrial espionage, and also around the time when there is a race for the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, are there cyber attacks specifically and especially in Indian establishments with COVID and with the pandemic?
So since the COVID vaccine news started hitting on the news different channels, we have observed a number of cybercrime or organized cybercrimes in that case, which are essentially trying to steal the intellectual properties from the companies who are creating those vaccines. Now, in the context of India, where we believe there is going to be a large part of the production facilities which is going to be involved in the creation of those vaccines, we anticipate that those attacks will eventually come to the Indian manufacturers as well, with the intent to steal that intellectual property, especially the data behind how these vaccines are being created or produced.
Right. Beenu Arora, thank you very much for taking the time out to speak to us here at CNN News 18. With this also opens it up for a larger discussion, and we'll do it very, very soon. Thank you very much.